Hi, friends. Welcome back to Brooke Numerology. I'm really glad that you're here today. So, I am going to do a really fun video. I am so excited about it because it combines my three favorite things, which is numerology, astrology, and Disneyland. And why, you might ask, am I doing a video on Disneyland today? Well, in case you don't know, it is because today is the 70th anniversary of the opening of Disneyland in California. So it opened July 17th, 1955. And the park is doing a celebration this entire year, but today is the actual day that it opened. And so it's the only park that Walt Disney ever stepped foot in before he died. So it's a really big deal. Now, Disney to me is like, it's the ultimate symbol of Americana, right? I mean, Americana, it gave this hope for the future. And it even carries over into other countries, because there are people from all over the world that will come visit Disneyland. It almost reminds me of Route 66. It came about when there was just this newfound hope for America. And while I think for a lot of us, that hope no longer exists, it's almost like when we step inside Disneyland, we're taken back to a time when things are better. And again, this new hope for the future. So I absolutely love Disneyland. I went when I was a kid. And, I went back a couple of years ago when I took my child, and I was one of those people that got super excited. I mean, Mickey came out late at night and right before the park closed, and I just started screaming. I was so excited, and all these kids are looking at me, like I'm this, kind of like who's this crazy adult like yelling because Mickey's here? But I am a kid at heart, and so that's why I'm so excited to make this video. So I'm going to share my screen with you now because I'm going to show you why the opening date of Disneyland was so important to its success and how it really flowed with Walt Disney's destiny number and his birth number, as well as his name number. As I was doing research for this, I am convinced that he had someone help him determine the date of opening. I mean, I'm pretty sure he consulted a numerologist or an astrologer because the way things flow, I mean, you couldn't make this up. There are so many reasons why there was success. And so I'm going to show you how. And the reason this is important for you, even, beyond if you are a lover of Disneyland, is because it shows you how picking a date to begin a project is so important for its success and its financial success later on. So I'm sharing my screen, and I just wanted to put up a personal photo really quickly. This is me right here, and then my little sister when we went to Disneyland in the 80s. And I just love it so much, and it's one of my most favorite pictures in the world. Okay, but we're going to go first to the name numbers. Okay, this is what is so important. So Walt Disney's name number is a 6. So I have another video on this, but essentially you just take each letter and it corresponds to a number. You add it up to one condensed number, and then that's the name number. So Walt Disney's name number is a 6, which is represented by Venus, and Disneyland's name number is a 5, represented by Mercury. The reason this is so important is because when you say these names, they put out a vibration into the universe. And when they meld well together, it makes things successful and flow better. And Venus and Mercury are best friends, right? So his name number 6 is Venus, which represents the beauty in life, luxury, enjoying the finer things. It represents relaxation and having fun. It also is a number of financial success. And so he is bringing the vibration of his name is bringing these things to Disneyland, and his name is helping in the success of Disneyland. Now, the other thing that I want to show you really quickly is that Walt Disney's destiny number is a number 1. We'll come back to his grid in a little bit. But when we take, which is ruled by the sun. So when we look at his destiny number in comparison to Disneyland, which is 5 Mercury, it gets along, right? Because the sun and Mercury are friends. And so his destiny number is helping in the success of Disneyland. Now, what I wanted to show you is this is the opening date of Disneyland. So we're going to do a quick grid. I have another video that'll go into this, but I just wanted to show you this really quickly. So we're going to put in the date that Disneyland opened. It opened July 17th. So we're going to put the 1 and the 7, and then we add the birth number together. The 1 plus 7 becomes an 8. July 17th, 1955. And then the opening date, when we add all of these numbers together, it has a destiny number of 8. And so the destiny number is incredibly important. Why? Let's go back. The 8 destiny number compared to Walt's name number does well, right? Because Venus and Saturn are good friends. And then the name number of Disneyland, which is 5, when we compare it to number 8, which is Saturn, does well together too, right? Because Saturn and Mercury are friends. Now, what's really important about this is Disneyland's name number is 5, right? And then the opening date is 8. I'm just going to write that in here so, we remember what this 8 is, the opening date. The reason this is important is because not only are Mercury and Saturn friends, but within numerology, one of the numbers is even, the 8 is even, and the 5 is odd. And so this provides a really dynamic aspect that keeps things going. And so Saturn, which is ruled by 8, the opening date, is providing this huge amount of stability to the name Disneyland, because that's the vibration being put out into the universe. It's providing stability. It's allowing Disneyland, which is 5, ruled by Mercury. This is a number that has to do with communication. It's very changeable. But that stability being provided by number 8 is supporting Disneyland being able to change over the years and reinvent itself. And this is so incredibly important. Now, I want to go back to the opening date and show you something, because this is something I think when we're doing case studies, it's easy to see why something happened, but we also need to see the challenges that could occur within name numbers and dates, because it's important to see what's coming up and then how they can either be exacerbated or mitigated. Now, one thing I want to show you is, remember Walt Disney's destiny number is a 1. Okay, so Walt Disney's destiny number is a 1. Now, 8 and 1 are enemies. The Sun and Saturn are enemies because Saturn is the son of the Sun, and the Sun, number 1, abandoned his son Saturn. Now, you would think that because Walt Disney's destiny number is a 1, that it wouldn't do well with an opening date of 8, right? That's something that we would think would not do well. Now, I've already plugged in the opening date for July 17th, 1955 into the grid, but I didn't add in the destiny number. So the destiny number, right, for the opening date is 8. So I'm adding that in, and here's the complete grid for that opening date. Now, at first glance, we would assume that Walt Disney's number does not do well with this, but it does, and here's why. In this grid, Saturn, which is 2 8s, has more power than Walt Disney's number 1, and this is important because the universe is always trying to balance things out. And number 8 Saturn, because there's 2 of them, first of all, this is a yoga for a lot of hard work, but then huge financial success. So the opening date is being set up to have massive financial success after hard work, because I know, for instance, I think that the Haunted Mansion sat empty for a number of years until they were able to get it going. Please let me know if I'm incorrect about that. But I'm pretty sure it sat empty for a couple of years, and then finally it got going. So there was going to be difficulty at times, but after you worked hard, then there would be success. Now, I'm sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent, but going back, because this grid has 2 8s, Saturn is in control. And this is important because Saturn felt that his father, number 1, had abandoned him. But because there's 2 8s, it's creating more power. And while number 1 and number 8 our enemies, the eight within the grid compared to Walt Disney's Destiny one, the fact that there are two eights is mitigating this significantly because Saturn feels like he has power. And that was basically all that he wanted, right? He wanted to be loved by his father. And he wasn't until, a number of years later. But because there's two eights in the grid, then Saturn feels he's in control and it's mitigating the problems that may have occurred between the two eights, the opening date of eight, and Walt Disney's number one. Okay, so then I wanted to go and really quickly talk about the astrology of everything because this is important as well. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do when we're looking at the horoscope of the date, because the astrology is helpful too, right? We always have to go back and check the astrology to confirm what we're seeing in the numerology. It opened at 2:30 p.m. Now, why is this important? Because we're doing numerology, we need to add the 2:30 together. What do we get? 2 plus 3 plus 0 is 5. And so what does 5 mean? 5 corresponds with Walt Disney's name, right? 6 and 5 are best friends. And it opened at 2:30, which is Disneyland's name number. And so you can see how this was setting everything up for success as well. Now, this is where, pardon the rudimentary drawing, but I decided to add this in at the last minute. So the ascendant at 2:30 p.m. on July 17th, 1955, the ascendant was in Libra. Now, this is important because Libra has to do with the people. It's a balance with the people. And so people were going to find the park pleasing. That's the first thing that's important. Now, what do we remember about Disneyland's opening date? It has a destiny number of 8. Now, let's go back and see. We have to see where Saturn is because Saturn's ruled by 8. Where is Saturn? Saturn was in the first house in Libra. And where is Saturn exalted? It's exalted in Libra. And so it was in its highest placement. And so it was doing so well the day that it opened. And it's also conjunct the ascendant of the time it opened. And so Saturn on the ascendant can be very serious, but it's also stability and hard work. And it's exalted in Libra, right? So do you see how it's doing so well? Then we need to look and see where Mercury is and within the chart on that horoscope of that day. Why do we need to see where Mercury is? Because that is the name number of Disneyland. And so every time Disneyland is being said, it's carrying a vibration into the universe. And so it's really important to see where that number is, what it's doing. So Disneyland, represented by number 5, Mercury, is sitting, as you can see, with Venus. They are together. They are best friends. And it's sitting within number 3, which is Gemini. So it's in its own sign, Gemini, with its best friend. I mean, this is huge. And that's why I've said, there's so many little things all adding up. This had to have been planned. I am convinced of it. So one thing I do want to say, remember I said a few minutes ago that there can be challenging placements and we have to examine those too to see what's happening. Now, the moon was at 9. Oh, sorry about that. Now, the moon is in 9 degrees with Mercury, which is at 12 degrees, and Venus, which is at 18 degrees. They're all sitting within Gemini. And again, this is per the sidereal system within, though, the nakshatra of Ardra. Now, I'm okay with, Mercury being in Ardra and it's with its best friend, but in general, I don't like to see a lot of planets within Ardra, especially, within a person's birth chart. Ardra is a nakshatra of destruction. It's a difficult nakshatra and it's for the greater good, right? So Ardra it's a very challenging nakshatra. It's a destructive nakshatra. It's ruled by the fierce form of Lord Shiva. And so there's going to be, especially if it's a person's life, there's going to be a lot of challenges, a lot of destruction. And so think of it like a rock and the person is being polished and polished, and eventually they become a diamond and shine. And so experiences and planets within Ardra are going to face a lot of challenges, but then it's for the greater good, and there is something beautiful at the end. And so planets for a person within Ardra do bring a lot of challenges. But what I wanted to say about this is through my research, I have found that when businesses begin, when there are prominent planets within Ardra, they do incredibly well. They are highly successful. Why? It is because Ardra is ruled by Rahu, which is outside of the box thinking. It's a lightning bolt of energy. And so when businesses open at this time, they are challenging norms of what is already existing. They are destroying the old and coming up with new ways of being. So when Disneyland opened on July 17th, 1955 at 2:30 p.m., 3 planets were in Ardra. And it was perfect. It was perfect. Disneyland was set up for success. And so again, Ardra can be a destructive nakshatra, but I have found when businesses open with prominent planets, the ascendant, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, planets do really, the planets help the business achieve success. And it's also operating within the 9th house. And so the 9th house is the house of good luck and fortune. And so the opening date was setting Disneyland up for success. It was in the house of good luck and fortune. And then let's count what's 5th from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We come back to Libra with the ascendant and Saturn sitting within Libra. And the 5th house is the house of Purva Punya. It's the house of past life good deeds. And while Disneyland, didn't necessarily have a past life, it's bringing this energy to Disneyland, which is fortune. And Saturn is in here, exalted in Libra, but that is the stability. So do you see how normally a date like the 17th, Saturn can be a difficult number to work with, but it's bringing stability. So also, again, the destiny number is 8. So, everything is starting to line up for Disneyland. So now what I wanted to show you is I want to go back to Walt Disney's grid, and we're going to look at his Mahadasha and his Antardasha. So I have talked before about the Mahadasha and Antardasha. Those are planetary time periods that we run to make predictions within both astrology and numerology. Now, this is Walt Disney's grid, his birth grid. And we need to look at the Mahadasha and the Antardasha that he was running, because that's going to set him up for success within Disneyland. It's a business that he opened. It's going to set Disneyland up for success. So I didn't do the huge breakdown. I just did the calculations and put them here. So he was in his 6th Venus Mahadasha, right? It opened in 1955. And so he was in Venus, that's within the window. And then he was running his 9 Mars Antardasha because it started July 17th. And so he was still within that window. So we're going to take 6 and 9. Let's remember those numbers. I did want to point out that he was in his 6th Mahadasha, which is ruled by Venus. And remember, his name number is a 6. And the 6 gets along with the destiny number of the date that it opened. And then also because he was running his Mars Antardasha, Mars gets along well with his name number. Okay, so remember, we have to take 6 and 9. So we're going to plug in the 6 and the 9 into the grid of the opening date. Okay, so here we go. 6 is the dasha that Walt Disney was running. So now what we're doing is we're basically superimposing Walt Disney's numbers into the grid just to show what his date of birth was doing for Disneyland. Okay, and then we're also going to put the number 9 here. That's Mars because he was running. So let's look and see when we superimpose the time periods he was running, what it does to the opening date. So it creates this yoga, this 675 yoga. And that is really important because that is a yoga to be able to appreciate the finer things in life and have enjoyment. It is so prominent. So the dashas that he was running was enabling the opening date to create this energetic foundation of allowing people to enjoy Disney. And then this yoga here, this 9-5. So he was bringing in courage because 9 is Mars and it represents courage and vitality. And there's just one of the 9. So this is very good. 2 nines can cause problems, but he was bringing in 1 9. And there are now 2 5s. And so he was bringing this courage into the opening date of Disney, and a 9 and 2 5s for a person signifies huge intelligence. But when we translate that into an opening date and a business, it is making the business be very smart in how it is able to run. It's almost giving this energy to the company to just run business efficiently. Now, I know that there have been some problems in the past with some of the CEOs, having some issues within business. But remember, the entire energy within this date is now able to run business efficiently, and it's a yoga for being very intelligent. So intelligent business decisions are being put into the energy of this opening date. Now, the last thing that I want to show you is, let's talk about Disneyland today. Okay, so it's the 70th celebration, and what I want to show you is, we're just going to do another quick grid. So we're going to put in July 17th, and then we have to add this 1 and 7 together to make an 8. And then we're going to put in the 25. We don't take the first 2 numbers of the century when we're doing grids. We're going to take the 2 and the 5. Okay. And then also we need to add the destiny number. And so I'm going to put the destiny number in here. Okay, so what do we notice right away? Again, we have this yoga, this 6-7-5 yoga of enjoyment. Okay, so we've come full circle, right? The date is creating a destiny number of 6, which is in harmony with Walt Disney's name number. They both share a 6, right? A 6 here. And then Walt Disney's number is a 6. And so this 6 is also in harmony with Disneyland's name number, which is a 5, right? 6 and 5 are best friends. Now, I have written here that the Sun and Saturn are now balanced. And here's what I mean by that. Okay, do you remember when I said the Sun and Saturn are enemies? And if there's 2 1s in a grid and just 1 8, Saturn is not happy because he feels, right, that his father left him. And this is per the stories of Vedic astrology. But now there's only 1 1 and there's 1 8. And so they are now in harmony. Sun and Saturn are in harmony. And so this date is so important. Everything is so much more in harmony. And then we have this yoga of the 6 and 2 right here. And this creates a day of happiness, right? In a person, it makes someone happy and jovial. It can create a lot of contentment within their family life. And that's what's happening here. There is now contentment within this date, this July 17th, 2025. And so now everything has come full circle to how things started. So remember some of the most important numbers. We had a 6. That was Walt Disney's name number. It was 6. We have a 5. That was his birth number. It's also the name number of Disney. I mean, these are the 2 key planets, 6 and 5, and they are best friends, right? Mercury and Venus. And then when we go back to the horoscopes, if we recall, 6 and 5 are together, right? Here's Mercury, which is number 5, and then Venus, which is number 6. They are in a challenging nakshatra, but Mercury is in its own sign. And so that is important. and it's carrying Venus. And so it kind of mitigates some of the difficult effects of Ardra. But remember what I said, that when a business opens with prominent planets in Ardra, even though Ardra is difficult, it sets itself up for success. And then we need to recall Saturn. Saturn is very important. Saturn is the other number here that's so important because that is the destiny number of the opening date of July 17th, 1955. We're going to go back to the horoscope just as a review. And Saturn is sitting in the first house on the ascendant, exalted in Libra. And so all of this together, this energetically, yes, it was meant to be, but I am convinced that Walt Disney thought things through, or he hired someone. And then we cannot forget that the park opened at 2:30 p.m., which adds up to 5. 5 is friends with number 8, which is the destiny number of the date the park opened. Number 5 is the name number of Disneyland. It is also the birth number that Walt was born. It gets along with his destiny number, which is number 1, the sun, and that 2:30 p.m. that adds up to number 5 is best friends with Walt Disney's name number. And the name numbers, I believe, in this case study are almost the most important numbers, even more so than the destiny numbers, because they are what people say, right? You get back from a trip from Disney and you talk about Disneyland, Disney World, Walt Disney. These names are carrying vibrations, and they are best friends. And what's also interesting is Disney World in Orlando also has a name number of 5. So again, it's set up for success. And I think it's so interesting. I really wanted to do this case study. I also wanted to mention really quickly that the destiny number of the 70th birthday, right? I mean, we can take a destiny number for anything. It's 7 plus 0, and that comes to 7. This number is so important because it creates stability within a person's life, within a grid. I don't think Walt obviously planned it this way because he wasn't alive, but look what happens when we put in the destiny number of the 70th birthday, right? It brings in a stability into Walt's grid. And so energetically, it's bringing in a stability to him. And these 3 1s and this 7 right here within his grid create a yoga for good luck, right? Because he does have a 1 that is his destiny number. And so it creates a yoga for good luck. And so I kind of think that he's almost like shining down, watching everything. And so I hope you found this video interesting. I really wanted to make it to just show you how the date that you decide to do something can have really great outcomes. Or, conversely, there could be a difficult consequence because it's putting out an energy into the universe. And so I suggest you always just make sure, if you're going to be making a huge decision on a certain time, that you really look at the date and the time that you're going to be initiating something, because it has this ripple effect that will last potentially 70 years, right? Like this. So please let me know if you have any questions. I do hope that you enjoyed the video. It was just really interesting to see all the subtle nuances and how everything just flowed together. I was really intrigued how everything was just in this perfect alignment to set the company up for success, and also to bring so much joy to people, because ultimately Disneyland's name number is 5. And this is a number of having fun, of travel, of being a kid again. And I just think it was so perfect how it all worked out. Let me know if you have plans to go to Disneyland for the 70th anniversary, or if you've already been. I just love it there. I think it's so much fun, and it's so happy. And it just really reminds me of a time when things were so much more joyful. And I think when you step in the park has this amazing ability to be able to transport you back to another dimension when there was, a time of just pure joy and happiness. And even if you're there for just a day, day, you really get to experience that hope and joy and feel like a kid again. And I think that ultimately that is what Walt Disney wanted to do, right? And he did it really well. So thank you again for watching. And if you are interested in booking a consultation with me, you can click the link in my bio or reach out to me at brooknumerology.com. And I will see you in the next video. Bye, friends.